Please welcome Paul Bogard. Go Deeps.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here. I live in Winston-Salem, but I'm not from Winston-Salem, and I got lost on the way to Greensboro today. But I'm here, so that's a good thing. I thought I'd read from the introduction to my book, Let There Be Night, which is an anthology where I asked a number of really wonderful writers to write pieces about what nighttime and darkness means for them. And I've donated all the proceeds from the book to the International Dark Sky Association that works against light pollution and for darkness. So the epigraph for the book comes from a wonderful book that many of you probably know called The Outermost House by Henry Beston. It was published in 1928, which is amazing when you hear what he says. Beston in 1928 says, "Our fantastic civilization has fallen out of touch with many aspects of nature, and with none more completely than with night. With lights and ever more lights, we drive the holiness and beauty of night back to the forests and the sea." So, more than 80 years ago, he saw what was coming. This is from the introduction that I titled, "Why Dark Skies?" When I think of dark nights, I think of a lake in northern Minnesota. On the longest day of the year, my father and I watch as the sun sets across the water and night begins filling a clear sky. Soon the summer triangle stands directly over us. Scorpio rises from the bay to our left, and the Big Dipper emerges high above where the sun has set. I asked my father, deeply involved in organizing property owners around the lake to resist the ever-increasing pressure from developers, if he has ever considered a dark sky ordinance. "What's a dark sky ordinance?" he says. The answer is easy enough. Laws regulating the use of artificial lighting, and difficult enough that I'm soon stumbling, wanting to say, "Dad, it's about holiness and beauty. Shouldn't that be enough?" And knowing that in the world today, it is not. I know the question my father is really asking, the question anyone would ask, is why? Why would we need a dark sky ordinance? Or more specifically, why dark skies? My answer begins in this place where my parents built a cabin the year I was born. I grew up coming here every summer, and every summer the dark, starry skies over the lake deepened their impression on me. It is still quite dark here, and on calm midnights I often take our ancient aluminum canoe out among the stars. I paddle slowly, pulling myself toward the center of the lake, looking back to see the house receding through steam, the smooth water warmer than air. A barred owl calls from dark shoreline, loons from the South Bay. A bat flickers by, bits of leaves and broken bugs mixed with stars and still water. A handful of amber cabin lights linger in the pines. I lean back on the bow and the Milky Way bends over me, one horizon to the other, there as it's always been. As a child, I was afraid of the night at the lake because the dark was so thick it seemed tangible, something you could stick your hands into or hold like muck or drapery. And the woods are still that way. But the sky is beginning to wear at the edges where gas stations hope to attract customers by immolating themselves in white light, and roadside restaurants blow their electricity bills straight into the sky. Each summer, when I return to the lake, I'm no longer so much afraid of the dark as I am afraid for the dark. I fear that the holiness and beauty Henry Beston saw being driven from his nights on Cape Cod some 80 years ago are now being driven from mine. We are losing dark skies all over the globe, but nowhere more than in Western Europe and North America. Astronomers say that because of light pollution, fully 80% of the people living in these areas no longer experience real night, that is, real darkness. The night most of us know is no longer what it was, and the costs are high. We're wasting hundreds of millions of dollars a year, for one thing. Besides creating light pollution, poorly designed lighting, whether in amount or fixtures or both, adds unnecessary costs to our light bills. We're endangering ourselves and wasting money attempting to improve our safety. Poorly designed streetlights and store signs send glare directly into drivers' eyes, and poorly lit sidewalks and doorways provide shadows for those we seek to avoid. We're ignoring the warnings from scientists who increasingly report the connection between serious disease and our addiction to light at night. Our bodies have evolved in bright days and dark nights and need one as much as the other. These are real costs, and an argument using only such reasons alone ought to convincingly answer my father's question. And yet, there are other costs, costs harder to quantify than those financial ones our culture understands. It's easy to forget that we humans are not the only species to suffer the costs of light pollution. Night is when the wild world comes alive. An example that stands out to me is how more than 400 species of songbirds migrate at night across North America, and how whatever internal compass they have used for however many millions of years is confused by our bright spills. How hundreds of thousands of birds every year are killed by our lights, either from being drawn toward and colliding with structures or from circling the light until they drop from exhaustion. The list of nocturnal or crepuscular, active at dawn and dusk, birds, animals, amphibians, and insects is long, and each species has had millions of years not only to adapt to darkness, but to come to depend on it. Some are as famous as wolves and sea turtles, some as ignored as salamanders and moths. As we allow the light from our buildings and roadways to devour the darkness, we threaten these lives. In his journal from March 23, 1856, Henry David Thoreau lamented the diminishing of nature by those who had come before him. Quote, "I hear that it is but an imperfect copy that I possess and have read, that my ancestors have torn out many of the first leaves and grandest passages and mutilated it in many places. I should not like to think that some demigod had come before me and picked out some of the best of the stars. I wish to know an entire heaven and an entire earth." Whenever I read this, I think, me too.